Hey, it's John Radford. I am just going to take you through maybe our City Council packet. So I just wanted to show you how you can get to the packet. We have packets sent to us, but this will allow you to kind of know what to search for. So this is our Idaho Falls webpage. And the way that's probably easiest is to go to the Agenda Center and search for that. It'll bring up a number of things here. You're going to want to find this one that says Agenda Center. And when it comes up, realize that you're going to be on a Board of Adjustment, not where you want to be. City Council is probably where you want to be, and then we can look at the City Council agenda. The agenda will pop up, and just so you have an insight as to how many pages, this council meeting is fairly short, and we're 267 pages. This just tells you when and where, who's involved, public participation. Lots of rules around that because we've had some misfortunate incidences that so that we have to have some guidelines, but it would be great. I think eventually you'll start to see us have some meetings once a month or once a quarter where instead of just the public comment, you could come and get public comment and then we would talk with you, because currently we are a hearing in your public comment, meaning we can't interact with you. We're encouraged not only encouraged, we would be stopped if we tried to interact. Okay, so we call to order, meaning they take the roll and see if they have a quorum. 7:30, we do a Pledge of Allegiance, and then we allow for that public comment. And we love getting public comment, and I love it even more when someone's funny or they say things that are slightly off kilter. It's all kind of fun, so I love public comment. So the other piece that we have next is our consent agenda, and these are things that are by consideration for the council, and they're things that were already budgeted. They aren't necessarily controversial, and they're informational sometimes, or they're things that are under a threshold to be on the consent agenda. So a number of things this month: getting a new service agreement with Bonneville County on ambulance service, sewer line rehab, treasury report, and the impact fee report. We'll look at that here in just a second, and so that you can see what we see. The regular agenda will start with Idaho Falls Power, and we are looking at an agreement with Rocky Mountain Power. So we'll look at all this in the packet. But as you can see, Public Works has a resolution to adopt a snow and ice control policies procedures manual. We are always, every year, trying to improve our manual and our efforts. And in this case, there's some streets that were annexed that need to be included in the manual. So that all happens there. Municipal Services is going to help buy some of our ambulances, because we have 2 ambulances that have outlived their useful life. Did you know that ambulances are costing $566,000? So that's the cost of doing business in the modern American medical establishment, and cars, trucks. We have a final plat for Highland Park Addition. We'll look at this a little closer maybe, but remember that final plats by statute from the state of Idaho, it is not something that city councils can deny if things are included that are meant to be included. So if they follow the rules, then it's necessary for us to actually pass the final plat. I have not, in my 10 years or so, seen a final plat not passed. And I have asked, what happens if it didn't? And they said that the statute would say that you're wrong, and you would still have to pass the final plat. Okay, amendment to Title 11 comprehensive zoning ordinances, so we'll look through these. This one's going to be about a recycling center being able to be in one of the zones, and then announcements and adjournment. So it's a fairly short council meeting. These are our memorandums for each council board action item, and this is one that I think people will be interested in right now. We have City Code requires an annual and quarterly reports about the impact fee. So this is the period of July 4th, 2025 to September 30th, 2025. We did receive a total of $588,327.52 of impact fees. Those happen in Idaho Falls when you apply for a permit for development. Of those impact fees, $232,516 were paid for multifamily, and $237,307 were for single family residential. So we've been, for a while, there was some misbalance there, but we're seeing a balance there between single family and multifamily. So that's interesting. There's $45,000 for institutional, $17,000 for office space, and $55,000 for retail. A total of $2,005,288 is also in the unpaid category, which includes projects in various stages of development. What that means is, if they're going to pull their permit, they can't start until they pay their impact fees. But if they've submitted their plans and aren't ready to pull a permit, then often the impact fee is in there. So the impact fee quarterly report supports good governance, community-oriented results by providing sound fiscal management and thereby enabling trust and transparency. That's trying to look at our planning objectives, that we are actually looking at things based on the priorities we've set as a council for our departments. The fiscal impact for this section is, so they'll talk about what our balances are in the cash funds. So as of August 31st, 2025, there was $13.2 million in the impact fee fund, with a total of $1.6 million for police, $1.2 million for fire and emergency management, and $3 million for parks, and then $7.3 million set aside for transportation. That is interesting, right? Because we talk about these numbers quite a bit. We see these numbers increase fairly rapidly as development does happen. So impact fees by category. So right now, these were the permits issued. So again, $26,000 were for multifamily, for police, $21,000 for single family, institutional, and then retail. And realize that retail fees are way higher than residential fees. So the impact of retail coming in often has a higher impact on traffic and our roadways that are what we're trying to deal with impact fees. Fire department, you can see those lines. Parks and Rec got $75,000 for multifamily and $62,000 for single family. And transportation brought in $105,000 for multifamily and $135,000 for single family. So kind of interesting what we collected. So that was $588,000 received between July 4th and September 30th. So if we were on this current trajectory, you would see about $1 million collected for the year in impact fees. These are impact fees unpaid by category. So that is $2 million. So those are things that are in the pipeline that haven't been paid for. Cash balances as of August 31st. So I think we just talked about those, but those are highlighted there. So what's interesting is now we'll have multiple pages here of everything that has paid their impact fees. So each of these are labeled institutional because it's a church, there's an impact fee and it's a fire EMS fee here. So their entire project paid that much for the fire fee, the police fee, the institutional impact fee transportation was this number. And so that addition is, not inexpensive, because the theory is that these institutions bring more traffic, they're growing and they're bigger, and so they have these really big dollars that they pay out. And again, we actually charge quite a bit more impact fees for institutions and retail establishments than we do homes, and you'll see that as you come throughout this impact fee document. We are looking at calling things not multifamily or single family. In the future, we're reworking this. We'll probably pass a new impact fee ordinance and capital improvement plan in December, January, February timeframe. We've been working on it for 6 months or so. The new ordinance will refer to dwelling units and not differentiate, because we're going to start charging not by multifamily or single family, so that we don't incentivize one or the other. We'll start charging by square feet, regardless of where you dwell. So if it's a dwelling unit and not a retail business or an institution or something, then you're going to be paying by the same equitable square feet, which should also reduce some pricing of the cost of things, because if we actually have smaller square footage, if we encourage smaller square footage because we're charging less if you're a smaller square footage, then we might get more small apartments, more small houses that would maybe cost less to build, and then that would be passed across to our purchasers. So you can see the numbers that go through here. So these are all for different expansions, new office building, Sherwin-Williams. And then we get to the multifamily fire. You can see that that building is paying $2,194.50 to fire. There's a 5-unit townhome style, that's building 18, and you can see that it's a bit less because it's not 7. So all kind of interesting. So you saw the fire, and now here's the police. So the police get $2,300 for that same 7-unit townhome style apartment. And then Parks and Rec now has that same is $6,730 for parks. And then transportation is by far the biggest number. So for those 7-unit townhome style, every unit is going to contribute what they owe, and that total for 7 units is $9,352 for the transportation, which means roadways. So anyway, you're free to go look at these. These are out there. These are single family fire. You can see they're $389 for the single family house for fire. The still fire here. And then we're looking at police of $480, so about $100 more to pay the police for their needs. And then if we keep going, we'll have a single family home for Parks and Rec. For a single family home, they're going to pay $1,300 towards a new park somewhere in somewhere in town around a park, because we need more park space once we have more people. And then the continues, and now you'll see the transportation for a single house is $3,000 per house to help build us roads. And just so you are aware, we live in Idaho, and the Idaho method of allocation for the federal highway dollars is unique. Most states get a 50-50 match. So if you were a city in Massachusetts, you'd get 50%, and the federal government would pay 50%. So the city would pay 50 and the federal government would pay 50. Idaho and some rural western states get a 93-7 match. So that number of 7 million if in theory, this doesn't actually work this way, but in theory, if we could put everything into our Bonneville Metropolitan Planning Organization, where we plan out roads and work with Yukon, Iona, Ammon, and the county, if we got that all together and we put everything into the federal highway packages, which take 5 to 7 years to kind of go through to get those dollars, but if we wait and get that in 5 to 7 years, then we can turn those $7 million into, we would only have to pay 7%. So that 7 million can turn into something like 60 to 80 million dollars of actual roadways. So having these extra impact dollars for roads is not just the dollar amount you see, but if we plan and we have the opportunity to do it in spaces where the federal highway program works, then we get huge returns on these investments. So I'll scroll through these if you're interested. There's lots of interesting things in terms of who's building and where and on what roads. So that all happened from July until I think they said the end of August here for these. So it goes on. And when you see that there's 270 pages, 267, this is what you see often is you're not reading words and words and words of pages, but you are reviewing these. I'm going quickly through these because I looked at them earlier today. I find the impact fee stuff kind of riveting in terms of new growth paying for growth instead of these kind of things. If we were going to have more, if we were going to get newer, nicer things, and it was because of growth, before that would have come, before we had impact fees, that would have had to come out of our general fund, which was our existing taxpayers, because the people who are paying taxes with a new building actually we won't receive any of those taxes for probably a year after they're completed. This is our treasurer's report. I think you guys will find this interesting. These are our bank reconciliation summaries, so that tells us, what accounts we have and what we ended and started with. Kind of interesting. This is what I think is interesting. We have the amount of money in these accounts that are kind of staggering. So our beginning bank balances were $219,814,569. Our deposits were $114,921,277, and we withdrew $123,795,181. Our ending bank balance was $9 million less than our beginning, and that is $210,940,000. And those numbers are, large amounts. But as we go here, you'll see that some of this is, much of this is investment that we would, we invest our reserves for differing functions. And so you'll see that as we go here. The general accounting ledger has different designated places for things, and this just shows that. One of the more proud things that we have in the city is this MRF cash. This is money set aside because we require our departments to pay for their vehicles every year. So a department might pay $400,000 for their new cars. Instead of actually buying $400,000 of new cars, we have just invested the time value of money, and so cars are purchased with cash, except for some vehicles in the emergency management section where leasing is kind of our only option. Okay, so in 2022, as of August 31st, we had $31 million in our general fund. Remember, 2022 had a lot of COVID dollars. 2023, August 31, we had 28 million, and 2024 we had 26 million. Now we're largely through our COVID money, and we're sitting at 27 million, which is probably where we would have been back in 2022. We sat on about $10 million of COVID dollars as we worked on projects and as we paid for them. So $27 million is in the general fund. That's a good chunk for us, and but there's certain times where we have the lowest numbers and the highest numbers, because we get 2 payments from the county of our taxes that are generated, and so those are split in half. And often December will be the lowest month of general fund balances. These are all of our special funds, and I think this is kind of interesting. These are our street fund, 8 million, 10 million, 15 million, and 10 million. Recreation fund, there's different things that we've used that for. The library fund has a large balance. Realize that large number was not for operations. The library was trying to save money for expansion. And then when the county moved to have their own library, expansion wasn't quite as needed. And so now we're discussing what's the next step for those dollars. But they are needed because that building is old and there is plenty of repairs, and $4 million or 3.7 doesn't go very far. We have an airport fund, of course, electric light weatherization fund, BID improvement fund, those get used. The golf fund is kind of fascinating. Risk management fund, which is money set aside for insurance purposes. Health insurance fund, this was money that we set aside to see if we can ever go and be self-insured. Emergency medical services fund. Wildland fire fund. There's a number of reasons for all of these different funds, but very interesting. Our largest funds, if you look down here, are our water fund. We're saving money for future expansion needs, just like we paid for the water tower out of dollars we received. So we save that and set it aside and invest those dollars. And sometimes investments do really well, and so that helps. We have the same for sanitation. And then the Idaho Falls Power Fund is really interesting because there is a number of reasons for that funding. We have to have money set aside to keep the lights on if power ever gets really expensive. And then we also have funds for Idaho Falls Power that we collect so that we can rate stabilize. And so like this year there was a rate increase, but because we did better on our power sales and power purchases, we gave that back. And so this year's increase might have been like 5 or 6% in your electric utility bills. But really you're only going to have, because you're going to get a refund as well, your increase will be almost nothing. Okay, so monthly revenue and expenditure reports are super interesting. Just really important that we keep an eye on all of these funds and make sure that things are being expended in a way that is sacred in terms of we keep track of taxpayer dollars. So we have a list of things that we've had to restate if there was something that made sense for accounting, so that's all out there. Okay, this is our sewer line rehabilitation. We go out for competitive bids. This was bidded to the National Power Rotting Corporation. They bid $956,000, and this was for our sewer line rehab 2026 projects. The purpose of these were to contract with the lowest bidder to line aging sewer and stormwater pipe throughout Idaho Falls. In my time on council, we were trying to tear up and replace 1 mile of sewer a year, and now we have this new product that allows for sewer line to be lined with these long-term plastic safe ways for pipes to stay whole, but the whole interior lining is new newly lined and it's inverted. It's really a cool process to watch. But this amount of replacement of sewer line would have been overwhelmingly expensive. This is probably 1/10 of the cost that we would have paid just 5 or 10 years ago. So it's very, very cool. Steve Borman is the interim general manager, and we're buying a digger derrick. And this purchase will replace a 2009. It's the end of its life and scheduled for replacement. Again, remember Murph, we set aside money long ago so that this can be paid for with cash. The city's able to lock in the pricing now because with many projects now, it's 2 to 3 years to sometimes get this equipment once we order it. Let's see, this shows you the actual bid price, so $353,741 for the actual unit itself, and then some of the other options. Custom kits for what we do with power poles. So we will be paying $441,000 for the digger. So then this is telling us what they're going to do with the old digger. All right, Paul Radford's our new interim fire chief, and this is the service agreement that allows Idaho Falls Fire Department to continue to provide a proficient and cost-effective method of EMT services to the residents of Bonneville County. So what happens is the agreement is for 2025 to 2026, and the county has agreed to pay $4,053,000 so that we will provide all the ambulances and transport services in the county. And like anything else in government, there's lots to look at in terms of the service agreement between the city and the county. Lots of contractual language, and this is all very important. And mind you, we have lots of eyes on this, a legal department, all of the county commissioners, all of the city councilors will all sign this. So many pieces of information would be in that ambulance agreement. Looks like we're going to have a new Region 7 Type 2 Idaho Hazardous Substance Emergency Response Team that's going to be led by us, and so this is the amendment that defines the roles and responsibilities of that. Contracts make good neighbors, and so it's useful. This is important documentation, and there is a lot that happens when we deal with hazardous substances. So if you're interested, this is in the packet, and you can read every word and decide what you think. And this is the funding agreement after what the scope of work is. So this is going to go through July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. And defines all of those sorts of things that are important. Okay. These are our fire station alerting systems so that our fire station can have advanced computer-aided dispatch, which is really critically important and can be life-saving. That budgeted is $64,000, and that saves lives. I mean, people who have had a stroke, 5 minutes can make all the difference, and if we're even 30 seconds faster, it's really useful to our medical professionals. One of the benefits of living in a city, in my mind, is that you don't have a 30-minute wait for an ambulance. If you have a major stroke and you live in the city of Idaho Falls, often you will get a response in 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. Even, we've had way better response times than that. But, and then you can be at the hospital within 10 minutes. And for strokes, the drug that is administered, if you're not there within 2 hours, then they will not administer that life-saving drug because it has the potential of actually breaking up in the brain and then causing more damage than what it was intended to help with. So lots of documentation, lots of details, so this is really useful. Important opportunities to look at those. This is the authorization to pre-order these North Star ambulance modules. These remounts and refurbishments come from the specific company, and it makes it so that it's more effective and more cost effective for us. Pretty cool. Okay. This is the 2025 licensing through the Office of the City Clerk. The City Clerk officed new business license 55, renewed 106, and 14 contract year licenses were done. And if you're interested, you can go look at all of them. They're all here. So, very interesting. Alcohol licenses are something that happens very consistently and are important. Business licenses generally help the city know what's in a building if we have to hit the if we have to go fight a fire there. So, all right, this is a good look at much of what we do. So, hope you enjoyed kind of the process of what we'll look at. These are past minutes to the council, so we review those and make sure they represent what we thought we said. All right, there's still 150. There's still more packages of pages, so I'll let you all look through those. But I think that was a good highlight of what we'll be doing at our council night. So, thank you.